How was your weekend? And has somebody taught you about the imperial measurements now?
It's nice spent a long time in school learning about the metric system. It was a joke because I think it's a joke. I was being ironic because I really think that, going back to the imperial system, with, some shops apparently have market traders and things that have always used it. And it's just, what is Boris talking about going back
Well,
to
it's
imperial
nonsense,
measurement?
isn't it? I mean, it's not something. I
It
mean,
is.
I mean, people make out that those that people that they think like me, sort of, some mad right wing bigoted Brexiteer. It's all we do is think about waving flags and measuring things in pounds and ounces. We don't, and I'm not that person anyway. But the point is, it's a bit of a distraction when there's an energy crisis going on.
Yeah,
We've got
absolutely.
problems with our immigration control. We've got massive, really big problems to deal with. And Boris has flown off to Washington and New York to make a speech about climate change. I mean, what can you do?
Yeah, I mean it is a distraction. Get everybody talking about imperial weights and measures when we are facing the situation where we don't know what's coming down the line after the end of this month, when furlough ends, business rates, small businesses could be struggling. We don't know what the long term plan the government have for the economy. We've just got so many problems in this country at the moment that we really should be addressing. Instead of which, it's should we have yards or meters?
Well, listen, we've got a ton of trouble, no matter how you spell it, I think is a way to look at it. But let's talk a bit about your conference, because it's a bit disappointing. I would imagine if you're Ed Davey this morning, waking up, the Times doing the story about the trans row, which has kind of caused quite a good
Yeah.
deal of problems, because he couldn't really, could he, say that a woman, adult human female, was a phrase that people should use. What's the problem with that phrase?
I think I don't know the details of this, and it's not appropriate for me to know them. But I think the problem with the phrase is that it's used by the anti-trans community as a kind of rallying call. It's one of the phrases that they use, and it was a trans exclusionary T-shirt, and it was part of a campaign. And in the Liberal Democrats, we don't want to see anybody excluded. We don't want to see anybody victimised or anyone
Yeah,
discriminated
but the
against.
woman who wore the T-shirt with that on it has been excluded from running for Parliament. So you've kind of gone against your own policy, haven't you?
Well, I don't actually know the details of that case. I think it's probably, I don't know, but it might be about more than a T-shirt. But that is, it's not appropriate for me to go into something which is private to that person. We
Yes,
have
but if you've
a
excluded, yeah,
distinct and
but if you've
independent
got a policy about
process.
non-exclusion, why are you excluding someone?
Well, that we have a distinct and independent process to deal with all sorts of disciplinary matters, complaints, things like that, and it's not appropriate for me to talk about it.
Yeah,
It's not
it
appropriate.
makes you look a bit hypocritical, is all I mean. I don't mean you personally. I mean as a party, it makes you look
Well, I
like the
don't think
party of
so. I
hypocrites.
think if you look at it from a different perspective, if I were to wear a T-shirt with a racist slogan on it and promote a racist argument, then I wouldn't be promoting the values of the Liberal Democrats. I wouldn't, I wouldn't, I shouldn't be wearing a racist T-shirt anyway. But if I were to do that, I wouldn't be promoting the values of the Liberal Democrats. I wouldn't be promoting values that we think are acceptable in society, and therefore, I shouldn't be part of the party
Okay,
because
so
that's
so if somebody who believes that women are women because they have a womb, or that they are allowed to go into women's prisons, and men who are identifying as women should not be in there, that makes them unacceptable to the Lib Dems.
no, 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 no. What we're talking in the there is a debate going on at the moment. We all know that, and unfortunately, Mike, I think it's become really toxic, and I think we've got away from thinking about the
I
people at the
agree.
centre of it. And I think we need to unstrip all the toxic language and all the unreasonable statements, and we need to start thinking about the people at the centre of this, the children who are going through trauma because they feel that they've been born one gender and it's not the right one. The families who are going through trauma because they're seeing their children torn apart by this and they don't know what's best for their children. And that is what we should be remembering in this, that what we're talking about, the lives of individuals. I have a close friend whose son is going through gender recognition, and I know how difficult it has all been for them. And we have a quite senior member of the party who is a transgender woman, and I have heard her wife speak at conference about how difficult it was for them, and how she felt that her then husband was suicidal over this whole issue of would they be able to reassign their gender, and what should they do, and how terrible it has been for that family. And I think that is what we need to focus on, supporting people, helping them through what is an incredibly difficult time, and making sure they feel safe, secure and valued in society.
But a lot of women, for example, in refuges, which are supposedly for women only, don't feel safe if a trans woman is allowed in there, in the same way that some women in prison don't feel safe if a trans woman is allowed into a ostensibly female space. And Ed Davey seems a bit confused about all that.
Well, no, I mean, I think the whole issue of safe spaces and women being allowed in, if your gender is reassigned, then you are whatever it's been reassigned. If you are born with a male gender and you identified as male, but then you reassign your gender according to the Equality Act, you are a woman and you're entitled into those spaces. Places like prisons, refugees should be risk assessed. They should be, and I think that's a reasonable place to be. But if you look back at where we were in the 80s with gay rights, we were in a terrible place. And there were some horrific things said and done. Gay men were given a horrible time. And we only now appreciate now how unnecessary and how unfair it was. And I think probably 30 years from now, we will regard the transgender debate in much the same way. And I think we have to remember that at the heart of this are people who just want to live their lives.
Yeah. Well, Christine, you've already made a far better point than Ed Davey did, and you had less time to do it in. So maybe you should be the leader. This is Talk Radio. Christine